Hello everyone, it's Jerry here, and we're going to talk about part two of I don't like the idea of having to tell my tenants to pay up or move out. Well, this is part two, and my rule is if a tenant is 7 days behind in rent, I'm going to ask the tenant to either pay up or move out within 3 days. Every state has its own set of laws to follow on eviction. Personally, I would try to avoid doing the formal eviction route. It's a little risky in that your tenant could hire an attorney and sue, but I've never been sued by a tenant. Here it is. On the 8th or ninth day the rent is past due, mail a certified letter, return receipt to the tenant asking them to pay up all the rent or move out within 3 days. Second, on the 10th day, post the same notice on the front door of the property giving the tenant 3 days to pay rent or move out. A copy of that letter you'd already mailed, certified mail. Most states require a certain verbiage and size of print to be in the letter. Most states require a dated receipt with a certified copy of the letter was received by the tenant. Here's where it gets a little gutsy, because some local or state laws do not allow this. After the 13th day the rent was unpaid or the tenant has not moved out, install a lockout cover on all entry door locks. These covers can be purchased at Home Depot or any other type store. Leave a note on the door stating that the keys are available by calling your phone number if clothing or toiletries or other necessities are needed to go to work. The whole point of this is try to get the tenants to pay the back rent before he or she moves out. Once they move out, it's unlikely you'll recover any funds. You can take them to small claims court, but even there the judge can issue a judgment against them, but even that has no power to force them to pay. A judgment is only as good as if the tenant owns real estate somewhere in your state. This judgment, quote, is then attached to the real estate deed, forcing the tenant to clear the judgment if he ever sells that real estate. Otherwise, you have a piece of paper that's worthless. If the situation has gone this far, you may elect to forget trying to get back rent and just be happy the tenant is going to move out promptly. To try and just get the tenant out of your house, just simply agree to pay you for 13 days rent or whatever the time period has elapsed for the month. And you will not agree to seek legal action against him or report this to the local retail credit union. You're not really giving up anything because the legal remedies are too costly and time consuming for you. Plus, unless you're belong to local retail merchants credit bureau, they will not honor your report anyway. If you want to follow the rules and go through the legal system, consult your attorney. See, I told you so. You need to have one. Or you can call the court office that has jurisdiction in these matters and talk to the clerk of the court. She will give you details of legal proceedings and what you must do to satisfy the court. Your attorney will probably try to talk out of using his or her services. It's just too costly. I've only gone through a complete tenant eviction once in 40 years. In this one instant, when the sheriff's deputy and I showed up to have them forcibly evicted, they had already moved out in the middle of the night. They had moved out owing me over 2 months' rent to another state. It took about 45 days for the legal system to process the eviction notice from the date I sent it, the first certified letter. I got a judgment against the tenant in another state, but I never collected a penny from it. The legal filings and serving of the eviction notice cost me $145 at the time. If I would have had to move the furniture and belongings to the street it would have cost me even more than that in hourly labor wages. You may live in a state that has a stronger or weaker tenant rights laws. If I were you, I would study those laws and know where you stand. Remember to read the city ordinances relating to tenants' rights. Some cities enforce rent control ordinances. Be sure you know the rules on that issue. Normally, they don't apply to single family homes, but they could. Another situation would be if you're not pleased with the tenants once they occupy your property, you need to let them know about it. Be sure it is something that is covered in the lease. They are violating. If it's not something in the lease they're violating, the first time you notify them, do it in a form letter so it doesn't seem too personal. I have a form letter that just states the fact, and I've written it up here on the board. Excuse me. You have the date, the property address, the tenant, the lease violation that's written out over here, the lease page and paragraph here, the remedy, what it takes to correct the situation, and then any comments down here below. That's just a simple form letter I use, and get a copy of it, keep it in your file that you sent it to them. If they're not home, just post it, put it in their, stick it in their door, in the door frame of the front door, fold it up, put it in there. If you want to send them a certified letter, that may be a good idea. If the problems are not corrected, this could come in handy if eviction notice is necessary. Sometimes you have to personally confront this tenant to talk to them about this because they won't answer the phone or their phone's been disconnected. When personally confronting a tenant to pay up or move out, bring a big friend with you. That's what I always did. I'm kind of a small guy, so depending on the situation, perhaps you rented a home to a single mother with a child, but now she has allowed her macho boyfriend to move in with her. This has happened more than a few times to me over the years. The boyfriend, who is not listed on the lease, wants to do the talking for her and basically makes the situation worse because he's been drinking or on drugs. The only message you want to impress them with is, for example, it's okay for you to stay here, but you must pay the rent on time. You have until Monday noon to pay up or I expect you to be moved out. As I said, you remain detached from the situation. If you don't, you could find yourself in a shouting match with a tenant or this macho guy that will do neither of you any good. If the above scenario is not something you want to handle yourself, I got a plan B for you. And that would be to hire an aggressive real estate property manager to manage this particular property or until these tenants are gone. Consider the property management firm will want to manage the property for at least a year. After that, you can terminate the agreement. I have used this option a couple of times. It's allowed me to be detached from a bad situation. Normally, these property management firms have their own lease forms, charge a deposit, and take 10% of the rent proceeds. They will collect the rent and put it in their own escrow account, at which point they will deduct all charges from the escrow account. Try to work out a plan using your existing lease if you have one with the tenants, if you can. It's not likely they're going to want to sign another lease form presented to them. Okay, well, this concludes part 2. And I hope you learned something out of this. Kind of gave you my experiences over 40 years and hope it'll help you out. We'll see you next time. Bye.